Hello and welcome to the Too Much Apparently podcast. If you're new here, this is a podcast for the deeply feeling, overthinking, emotionally overloaded humans who've been told they're too much apparently. And if you're back, thanks for choosing to sit with us again.
We're Alice and Carly, two therapists who are also just sensitive weirdos trying to make sense of life, healing, and our own brains. This isn't a professional advice podcast. It's more like the messy, honest conversations that happen when you finally feel safe enough to say what you're really thinking.
This space is for people like us, the ones who've been called too sensitive, too serious, too emotional, too intense, and have spent way too long believing that it's true.
Okay, on with the episode.
Today we're talking about being too hard on yourself to enjoy anything.
This one's for the people who achieve things and then immediately move the goalpost.
The people who finally get the thing they wanted, the grade, the job, the milestone, and instead of feeling proud, they're already on to the next thing.
Or worse, you get it and you feel nothing, or a bit flat, or like it didn't really count.
That constant pressure to do better, be better, get it right, and how it steals your ability to actually enjoy your life.
Let's get into it.
Do you still experience this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I absolutely do. Even though I'm much more aware of this now within myself. I've done a lot of work on it, and yet it still happens because I think it's just automatic, and I don't even always realize that I'm doing it.
Yeah. Part of me feels like this isn't such a big thing for me, but also I know that over the last 18 months, I feel like I've achieved a lot of things and it hasn't made me feel the way that I thought it was going to make me feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like I did my supervision diploma, my EMDR training, and launched the podcast. And yeah, like with each thing, it's like, oh, it's this massive thing. And I think I almost expect to be a different person.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm still the same old me.
Well, I think that comes down to how we expect we might feel, not just necessarily a feeling of achievement that we might have or pride in ourselves, but a feeling that we will feel maybe different as to who we are as people. And the reason that we might be continually chasing success or chasing this perfect ideal, it's an illusion that we ever actually get there, but we keep thinking that we will, and then we will be different or things will feel different.
Yeah, I guess it flows on nicely from the idea that there's somewhere to get to, that there's somewhere to get to where things are going to feel different. I feel quite lucky to have learned quite young. At the beginning of my therapy training, so when I was 26, we learned about the Gestalt cycle of contact, cycle of experience, which moves through the different stages that someone goes through. I don't even know how to put that into words, but it basically breaks down, like if you're doing anything or experiencing anything. So to start off with, there'll be a sensation, and then there's your awareness of that sensation, and then there's like motivation to do something about that, and then there's the mobilizing to actually do something about it. So it moves around all of these stages, and you would almost expect the last stage maybe to be satisfaction, to be like, oh yeah, I've done the thing, tick the box, whatever. But there's actually a next stage, which is called withdrawal. But I think those two stages together are really what we're talking about in this episode. Is like, do we stay with the satisfaction of having achieved something? And do we then pause and make sense of or let it settle before we move on to the next thing again? And I think most people don't. I think most people wouldn't even be aware of it as a concept.
No. And I think it's so ingrained just in culture anyway. I mean, one of the things that's making me think of is children doing their GCSEs. They get the results, and then it's also what you're going to be doing at A-levels and what we'll be doing when you get to university. And we're already asking them what about the next thing that they're going to be doing, rather than having an extended period of time being like, wow, passed your GCSEs, great, without straight away going into, so now what? And I think, yeah, there is always that, so now what? If someone finishes their degree from them, it's also, now what are you going to do? It's always now what?
Yeah. I'm really interested in what it's been about for you, this pattern of next thing. What's been behind it for you?
Yeah, next thing all comes down to the not good enoughness. And it's very much internalized. I didn't grow up with, for some people, it might come from highly critical parents, which is not something I experienced. I think for me, the not good enoughness came from a sense of difference, came from experiences with peers at school and other areas as well. But that ultimately led to this strong internalized belief of not good enough. And only when I achieve a certain thing will I then be good enough? Will I then be seen and liked and accepted for how I am? And when I was younger, I think it went even more than that. Not just like I want to be liked, but I want to be revered. I want to be adored. I want people to look at me and think, oh, I wish I was her. People to be envious almost of me. And so I think when I was younger, there was some level of protection in wanting to have those things because it really made it, if you're there. There's a line in a song that I like by Alessia Cara, and the song is called Scars to Your Beautiful, which is a song I've always deeply related to. But there's a couple of lines in that really stand out to me. I think I'd just like to read a couple of them because people might hear it and relate. So some of the lines are, she just wants to be beautiful. She craves attention. She praises an image. She prays to be sculpted by a sculptor. She has dreams to be an envy. There's so many lines in that song that a lot of people would relate to. And of course, the ultimate message is about being beautiful just the way you are. But younger me, definitely had these strong beliefs that I need to be like this being made up of lots of different things, but really quite a distorted image of what it means to be a likable girl, woman in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just like, as you're talking and thinking about what is, and, building up an image of what you're saying, I guess ultimately what you're aiming for, and thinking about what it is for me. And the word that comes up for me is serene, is that's how I want to feel, is serene. Like I've done everything, like I've ticked all the boxes, I've achieved everything that's expected of me. I don't feel rushed. I feel confident all of the time. Like there's no negative emotions in there. Like this version of me never feels sad, never feels scared, or if momentarily scared, knows exactly how to respond to it in an adult way. Yeah, doesn't get angry except for in a very mature, very appropriate way. Yeah, there's really something about that for me that, yeah, if I do this, I'll become this. It does feel like it's about maturity, actually, which I'm
Mm.
literally just realizing as I'm sharing it with you. It feels like, yeah, if I do this, if I tick this box, I'll become this mature adult that knows herself and knows her place in the world and is respected by everybody, even if not liked, is respected by people, but clearly not real. Clearly
Yeah.
not real. And actually, I can really hear the perfectionism in it. And what I say to people when they're struggling with perfectionism is, how does it feel to you to be around somebody who is perfect? And most people, when they really think about it, would find that quite intimidating, to be around somebody who's perfect.
With you.
So then when they think about being perfect themselves, they can realize they don't want other people to feel that way around them.
Hmm.
They want to be able to connect with people, not for people to be like, oh no, I don't want to go near her because she's scary, or, whatever, she's
Yes.
too good. Yeah, feels like it's got something of that about it, of actually, I don't want to be perfectly serene. And part of the most joyful connections that I have with people, or the most meaningful connections that I have with people, is about the messiness of life, is about the vulnerability, it's about feeling lost and confused and overwhelmed and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like so much of what you said there in terms of that self pressure to must be this, must be that. So much of what you described sounded a lot like your temperament and how you wanted to be and how you wanted to respond to things. And it sounded like everything that I was saying, it was more about like status and social standing. And yeah, though I'm curious what people listening to this, what that has been for themselves, and then how that has manifested over the
Yeah.
years and what that has led to. So, the way in which this has played out for me is when I was really young, I used to fantasize about being famous. I think when it comes to people that you look up to and feel like are adored and that everybody loves and likes or even like loses their mind over is famous people. And especially growing up in the 90s. It's not like today where there's loads of artists and loads of celebrities, you know. When craze happened for people, like the craze happened, it really honed in on those people. Yeah, so much was about wanting to be famous. And only when I'm famous and I have that kind of platform will I then be enough, which of course was the unconscious process there at play. So there was such a fixation on finding ways that I could become famous, which really followed me throughout my earlier years and also my teenage years. But when I became a teenager, it became more about if only I could become popular, that's a way that I can then finally be accepted and be good enough. And in order to be popular, I had these beliefs that my personality had to be a certain way, that I had to dress fashionably, that I had to be beautiful, I could never be seen looking a mess at all. There would be so many things that I would do. You know, I'd have to reinvent myself every year with a whole new wardrobe and coat and shoes and pencil case and bag and all that kind of thing. I had to have the latest thing that was in fashion, or the craze at the time had to be in the know. So many rules and things that I lived by. But of course, it went to the extremes where I would take my hair straighteners to school and just straighten my hair in between classes. Every break and lunch break, I would be fixing my makeup in the bathrooms. And when I was at home, I wouldn't even answer the door to the postman if I didn't have a face full of makeup. So it spread to these kind of really extreme lengths. And then when I went to university, it then transitioned into academic success. So then it became about getting really high marks, getting a first. And since my early 20s and starting uni, I've been to university 3 separate occasions. So much of my what's next has then been about, oh, I'll just do another degree, and oh, I'll just do another degree. And each time, like wanting to be favoured by the lecturers and wanting to get top marks, whilst at the same time daydreaming about, I don't know, writing a book or having a super top 10 podcast. Come on, everyone, help me get there. Maybe doing a PhD. Yeah, up until the past 5 or 6 years, where I've actually slowed down, I have been on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And my focus might have shifted each time, but it's always been about trying to get the same thing, the same feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting to hear just the different ways that we deal with things and have handled things. And I suppose I'm just trying to think about my trajectory, and I don't feel like it mirrors yours. I think I feel like a lot of people, I was set on a path and expectations were set for me. And it was almost like I didn't, like, there was no, did I want to in any of this? You know, like so I think asking kids what they want to do when they're grown up is just like a generic question that you ask kids. But for me, it was, it was set out like I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer or some high flying career like that. And it was only when I was 16 and I had a conversation with somebody whose sister was training to be a lawyer. And he was like, oh, yeah, the hours that you have to do. And I was just like, I don't want that. But I don't think the next thing ever went away. So then it became for me, so I became pregnant. So my thing was having a baby. And then so then as soon as she was born, it was getting engaged. And then it was planning the wedding. And then it was like having another baby, buying a house, all these other things. I think like academics has always ran in the background. Like I've always wanted to be a doctor. And then I know I've said on another episode fairly recently, my brother-in-law is a professor. So I already now have that like, well, doing a doctorate's not going to be enough. I need to be a professor.
Yeah.
And I have noticed it again recently as well. Like I say, with having done my supervision diploma and doing my EMDR training, and I've got it again with my master's. There is part of me that's like, oh yeah, at the end of these 3 years, I'm going to be someone different. It's just such an enticing idea. I think I started quite young, really thinking about what do I want to do with my life. And what I notice with a lot of people that I work with is their trajectory on this path where they haven't had much input in what they want to do has gone on longer than mine did. So mine ended when I was 16. And I'll get people that come to me often when they've graduated uni and then they're looking for a job and they've got their job. And it's like, this is the end point, right? Like you've worked hard, you've got the grades, you've got into the good uni, you've worked hard there, you've, maybe won some awards while you're there, or you've got a first in your degree and you've got a shiny new job and everyone's impressed, but you feel kind of flat. Like, what
Mm.
was this all for? Or,
Like, is
yeah,
this it?
yeah, is this it? Yeah, so many people get a first in their degree and they're just like, yeah, it just doesn't feel like. And so I think that's something that I actually learned quite early on, was that it was really important for me to decide what I was doing with my life and to choose for myself what I was going to do. And so I think this is a really big thing when it comes to like going on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing is, A, did you want to do it in the first place? And if not, that's going to be really interesting to explore about how did you get into it then? And the other thing is about what were you hoping to get out of it? And with hindsight, was that realistic? Is that even achievable? I'm thinking
Yeah.
back to this image that I have in my head of being this serene, serene woman.
Yeah. And almost like,
It's
would you
not,
do it again? Not necessarily to highlight any life regrets, but more just to give you information about how actually it feels, especially when people have been set on a trajectory. Because you're right, people can get really far down that path, especially when you think about something like medicine being years upon years, even just post training of constant training and exams. People can get so far down that line before they go, hang on, do I actually want this?
yeah,
And you could be 10 years down the line into your training, into doing the job.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it was interesting listening to the differences there. And I feel like it highlighted something really important, that the next thing and the next thing and the next thing can look like so many different things.
yeah,
Because, like you mentioned, those life milestones of finding someone, getting engaged, getting married, having a baby, and buying your first house. How often are we set on this path of not those things kind of happening to us, but those are things we have to achieve, where people might be really working towards? And if your goal is, I must find a husband, I must find a wife, I need to have had a baby by this certain point,
yeah,
it's the same hamster wheel. It also makes me think of people who start off running 5Ks, and before you know it, they're running ultra marathons and doing Ironmans and multiple Ironmans. And there are so many different things we can find ourselves doing, and just keep going on to that next thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It does make me think a little bit about. So obviously, most of the people that I work with, when they come and start with me, they're young adults. So meeting, Mr. Right or Miss Right, whatever, comes up, and I had to fight the urge. Or sometimes I'll say it, but like I have to, kind of rein myself in a little bit to say like finding the one is not going to be the answer either. Like
Yes.
there's going to be a next thing after that. Like there is no one thing that we can achieve that is just suddenly going to give us this sense of, I think, whatever we're looking for, no matter what it is, for you, if it's status, for me, if it's like emotional regulation, whatever, that's just not how life works, that there is this one magical thing that's going to give us. And I think, again, like I was saying on the last episode, I think there's some really complicated dynamics that can come up when we start looking at this stuff. So part of what we're looking at is about how do we stay with our successes for a moment then? If we've achieved something, how do we stay with it and not move on to the next thing? And I think it can surprise people that quite difficult emotions can come up. So feeling guilty about being successful.
Mm,
So I don't have this very strongly, but somebody that I'm close to has a bit of a thing about not being clever. And so I feel like I need to water down a little bit if I've done well. So I recently did my
right.
first assignment for my thing and I got a distinction on my first assignment. And I'm like, I didn't expect to get a distinction. I thought I was going to scrape a pass. And I'm like,
And
yeah,
now
that's
my
amazing.
instinct is to praise you, but then I'm
Right, but now the pressure's
reinforcing it.
on. Right, so, yeah, and this is another thing I was going to say. Like I had actually let go of the pressure to get a distinction. I was like, I'll just let go of that. It doesn't matter. It's not going to impact my career at all. But now I've got a distinction. Now I feel the pressure to keep getting distinction
Mm.
level assignments done. So yeah, that's another thing is if you are successful, then instantly you feel the pressure to keep being successful and increase upon it every time.
Hmm.
Yeah, so to get better and better scores or, better and better whatever it is. Like guilt around privilege is another thing that I constantly see coming up in my practice is like, oh, yeah, I did this, but, I went to private school or I had a tutor or,
I see that a
a
lot as well.
parent that really supported me or I was just born clever so I haven't really worked at it, like all these different things there. Frustration of only being recognized for successes is one that I can really relate to, and I did when I was kind of working towards my GCSEs, really just hit a point of am I only loved because I'm clever? Like is that all I am? And actually then really rebelled against that for a while. But I think with some parents, it can be really complicated because they can simultaneously give the message that it's so important to succeed because they want to go and brag to all of their friends, like, look at my amazing child. But they also feel jealous or feel threatened by your success. And that can create a real, like, oh, what do you do then? And so that is part of my story, is that not quite in that same way, but that kind of double message of like be successful and don't be successful for various reasons. Yeah, that can be really complicated.
And incredibly confusing.
Yeah. So many
Yeah.
things that can come up when we think about this. And really, I'm just talking about family level there. But again, this is systemic. This is society, isn't it? That puts so much weight on achieving, being successful and being successful in a specific capitalist minded way.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like how, as parents, do you support your children, cheerlead your children, recognize and praise their accomplishments, whilst also not sowing the message that you only get that praise or attention when you have done
Yeah.
good things?
Yeah.
And so some people's like praise and recognition might just be coming from a really proud, really good, I want to be there and support you way, without realizing where that might apply pressure. And it feels good to be praised. If someone feels proud of you and says how well you've done, we're going to get into wanting to please people more and put that
Yeah.
big smile on their face.
Yeah.
And yeah, do well. It feels like it's a hard balance to strike.
Yeah. It makes me think about, well, actually, just going back to what you said about saying that you wanted to say, well done. Yeah. I mean, I kind of want people to say, well done. I work really hard at it. And I am really proud of
Well
myself.
done.
Yeah. But yeah, there is something about that. I guess that it can be a double-edged sword. And it makes me think about when I was younger, I used to get praised a lot for being Superwoman. And I'd get a real kick out of that. I'd be like, yeah, I am Superwoman. But actually, when I look back now, what I see is, I mean, behind the scenes, I was depressed. I was struggling. I was lonely. I was isolated. I was too ashamed to ask for help. And yeah, it didn't feel good. And I think it got to the point where I then didn't like being praised as being Superwoman. And I feel like I'm starting to see some feminist kickback around this now that, yeah, it's not enough to just praise women for being superwomen. We need to be checking in. Like, although saying that, I don't think I would have admitted to anybody that I was struggling at that point. So,
Yeah, but it does come
yeah,
back to people being praised for holding it all together.
yeah,
Oh, I don't know how you cope with what you cope
yeah,
with. You're amazing. You are. Well meaning comments, but actually it then feels like, oh, okay, so now I have to make sure that I keep appearing this way.
yeah.
I can't tell people that I'm struggling or if I struggle.
Yeah, yeah, because it's so tied up in identity and worth. Is yeah, it just felt like if I admitted that I was struggling, and it's and still can feel like this even now. And I think I've said before, like being a therapist, I think can make it even harder
Mhm.
because I feel like I should have noticed that I'm struggling before anybody else notices. Or
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah. There's so many things we've spoken about in previous episodes that tie into some of this stuff, but we've both said and recognized that when our achieving is tied to our sense of self worth, then the bar will always be moved up.
Yeah.
And we will continue almost in that cat and mouse chase where every time we think we might have just got it, it's off again and that goalpost just keeps shifting because there is no praise or certificate or status that we could achieve that is going to change the way that we feel the
Yeah.
inside. And because for myself, but also with so many people that I work with, so many articles and books that I read from people who are high achievers, overachievers, keep doing, whether that is in entertainment or whether you're an athlete, whether it's in writing, whether it's in academia, whether it's in parenthood, across the broad spectrum, it will never be enough.
Yeah. And that's so painful.
Yeah.
That's such a painful thing to have to come to terms with.
Yeah. Well, we started this conversation with you asking me the question, like, is this still a thing for me? And we've spent nearly half an hour now talking about all the things that we know about this. And yet I said, and yeah, it still shows up for me. So even knowing all this stuff, don't get me wrong, it's significantly different from what it used to be. But yeah, it still shows up.
Yeah, and it's the same for me as well. I think I am better at uh pausing with and celebrating the thing because of the gestalt cycle that I talked about before, kind of knowing that that's a thing. And I do often encourage my clients to, if they tell me about something, to celebrate it, to really soak in what they have achieved. And even if they feel like they're not proud of it or it doesn't feel good, is to, can they at least sit with, did they learn anything from this experience? Even if all they learned was, this did not bring me any joy. This
Yeah.
did not bring me a sense of satisfaction. I mean, that's really important information in itself.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I do often encourage people to do that. So I'll just go back a little bit because something I thought about when you were talking about wanting to be special,
Oh, yeah.
that was a really big thing for me. I think it's a bit less now. It can still show up. I think it shows up in more subtle ways than it used to. But that wanting to be special was definitely part of my story. And I think it is for a lot of people, this wanting to be special. So when I was with my first therapist, so this is a long time ago now, I think I must have been 23 when she said this to me. But she said to me, "You are special, just like everybody else."
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and like I feel like I look back now and it feels like, that was a challenge to perhaps a narcissistic part of me that needed to stand out, needed to be different, needed to be the one, needed to be just special, which I think comes back to the not being loved, not being seen for who I am. So, like I was saying before, when I was a child, it was like everything was about how clever I was, and it was only about how clever I was. So I think I see that searching for specialness as like, I guess, the loneliness underneath, and that maybe
Yeah.
I achieve these things and achieve these things and achieve these things. Maybe I'll finally be loved in the way that I want to be loved.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll finally be seen, be understood, like all of those things. Yeah, which I think often manifests in needing to be special to pull that off. But I don't think we do need to be special to pull it off.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I think that's really where it can come from.
Mm,
A feeling that we're only going to achieve that through specialness or through being seen as, yeah, extraordinary or really
yeah,
unique. You only have to look at Hollywood and celebrities to know that so many people chase the feeling of that specialness of wanting to feel extraordinary. And you can really tell the difference. And this isn't me trying to moralize this or anything, but the difference between people who act or sing because it's just their craft versus people who have really been pulled into wanting the fame.
yeah.
And obviously, then you get it, and it's just so incredibly destructive. And of the firm belief that being famous is traumatic.
Yeah.
But so many people seek that out for so many different reasons. But yeah, it's just to fill or to soothe this gaping hole, this wound that is
Yeah.
inside so many people.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are so many sad stories, aren't there? We're staying with the fame in particular, where it hasn't filled a hole. And, maybe they turn to drugs or some other destructive thing to then cope with those really uncomfortable feelings.
Mhm.
But yeah, right. So it's a really, I was going to say tricky path, but it can be a really dangerous path. For most people, it's not going to be fame, but whatever it is, this endless searching for something. Yeah. So as painful as that was when my therapist said that to me,
Oh, yeah. Even
I
when you
was
said it out loud, I was like recoiling from, no.
yeah. But I think actually what it gave me is, I don't know if I want to say like permission to connect with people, or it's not permission and it's not ability, but there's something there about connection, is about allowing myself to be the same as other people yeah, because there is something tantalizing about being special, but there's also something really isolating about being special. Whether that's actually having some skill that makes you separate and you know that you are special in some way, or harboring some fantasy that if only you could learn the right thing, do the right course, do whatever it is, and become the next undiscovered wonder. And with, I guess, the subconscious or just conscious superiority that goes with, it's going to show up in your relationships and create this distance.
Well,
Yeah.
there's the classic phrase, it's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
It is lonely at the top. So, for people who have really reached the top of their field, expecting to feel a certain way, it brings about a whole host of difficulties where actually maybe we've just really wanted to be seen and valued for who we are. And yet we end up being fundamentally disconnected and isolated and incredibly lonely from the people around us, almost reinforcing perhaps that original belief. One thing that's popped into my mind that we've not spoken about yet that I see so often is how many people with trauma histories get into a coping strategy of, well, busyness, relating that a bit to the last episode, but also in doing and achieving
Yeah.
in a way that I've heard people describe before when you've had a very traumatic upbringing, that there's the path of depression and substance misuse and having a really chaotic and difficult lifestyle. And then there are people who are now like the CEO of some top company and corporation, but that's seen as like the preferable, like the good way, I guess, to cope with your trauma.
Mhm.
When actually it can be just as harmful for a whole host of different reasons. It's just different, but it's
Yeah.
not better.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can seem like it's better.
I think again, it's the status, it's money, isn't it? It's all those things that are like tick boxes, but actually that felt like you were setting up one as like destructive and one as, I don't know, constructive. But like
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
actually that CEO path can be just as destructive. It can be just as
Yes.
destructive, not just to you, but to the people around you as well, if it's, having an impact on your relationships. But yeah, that when you said about people with trauma histories doing and achieving, it made me think of that Gabor Mate quote, which is something like, if you don't feel wanted, you'll make yourself needed, which is another like, oh, yeah.
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 Cut straight through. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think these are the things that can make overachieving and that can make success give the appearance of that this is a real strength, or as you've said, a really constructive or adaptive way, or a positive way to deal with negative, difficult, traumatic life experiences. And then because society rewards, discipline and productivity and achievement, I just think you're hit so many different ways with this is a great thing and a great way to be in the world. I think that's why even when you recognize in yourself that it's harmful, I mean, we know perfectionism leads to higher rates of depression and anxiety and reduced life satisfaction. And yet, I think that is why it is hard to fully come away from and stop doing, because it's just reinforced by so many different places.
Right. Yeah. And it's shame, isn't it? When I think about perfectionism, it's just about shame and avoiding shame and the cost to your life in doing that. Like how many opportunities that you miss out on, how many connections that you don't go anywhere near, all of that stuff.
And
Yeah.
it's fear. It's being
Yeah.
totally ruled by fear.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose what I think about it with this whole issue is about the importance of curiosity is that every time this happens, every time you get that flat feeling or not satisfied feeling or yeah, moving straight on to what's the next thing is to be really curious about what's going on. Because if you don't, again, going back to the last episode, there's something here about what are you aiming for? Like, what is it that you're looking for? And I know that I've talked, I think it was the New Year's resolution episode where I was talking about goal setting and kind of flipping goal setting on its head. And we set goals thinking that those goals are going to help us to feel a certain way.
Mm,
That actually it can be more helpful to pull back and think about how is it that I want to feel? What is it that I know will help me to feel that way?
yeah.
Yeah, turning that around.
Yeah. And even though we can work on actually being able to sit with our achievements and allow ourselves to really feel them,
Mm,
at the same time, they bring about emotions that are just as fleeting as anything else. So
mm,
it's not that we achieve something and then the feelings that come with that achievement we then have every single day for the rest of our lives.
yeah.
That is also then going to be fleeting. And at some point, you'll still be maybe proud of yourself for having done it. But any feelings attached to that, they're pretty much going to be in the past.
Mm,
So even if there is a certain feeling that we're chasing or the way that we want to feel afterwards, maybe we will
mm.
actually feel that, but then it will likely be gone.
Yeah, yeah, that it doesn't last. It's such a thing, isn't it? And I think there's something here about privilege as well. That I feel like you reveal the myth of capitalism that if you work hard and achieve more, you're not necessarily happier or more fulfilled with your life. Yeah, I'm just thinking about. So actually, what popped into my head was the royal family, and I feel like to some degree, rightly so, they get a lot of stick for various things, like talking about poverty, and then they're living in gold plated house or whatever it is that they're living these days. But there is a downside to it. There is a downside to. So I don't think about my practice in this way anymore, but I used to think about my practice in that I would work a lot with young women who felt like they couldn't talk about their problems because they'd just be dismissed as like, oh, poor little rich girl. And it's like, no, we need to pause with that a second. Like money, I mean, yeah, it means you can afford therapy for a start, but it doesn't fix all your problems. It doesn't take away all problems. So that's the same, whether it's money, status, whatever,
Mhm.
that you're still going to be sad. You're still going to be in pain. There's nothing we can achieve that means that we stop feeling difficult emotions.
Yeah.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's very true. And that's not to say there aren't things that we will be able to gain from certain achievements.
Mm,
When we do hard things, they can make us feel empowered and they can increase our confidence, and increasing our confidence and belief in ourselves can impact our self-worth. But these are things that we obtain through the hard work that we have done, not the certificate that we get at the end.
mm,
We get that through the journey, not that final achievement.
mm,
So, yeah, there's nothing wrong with wanting to achieve and do certain things, but it's what are we setting our sights on? And if it's to feel a particular way about ourselves at the end, or if it's this will really take me out of my comfort zone and will really stretch my confidence and make me believe in myself more through having done it, then yeah, great, absolutely go for it.
yeah. Yeah, I think being really clear on why we're doing something
Mm,
is so important. It's such an important part of this picture. And yeah, if you're repeatedly noticing that you're getting that flat feeling or the next thing is to slow down and think about if I'm going on to choose the next thing straight away, what is it that I'm looking for?
hmm.
Am I actually going to get it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I might have said this before, but something my therapist said to me when I kept going on about PhD, and as you've said, wanting to be a Dr. Radford, it's if you could do the PhD, but you knew at the end of it you wouldn't get that certificate and you wouldn't get that doctor before your name, would you still want to do it? And I think that can be really helpful because it invites you to ask the question, are you doing it because you really want to do the process, or are you doing it for the outcome of that process? And that for me revealed a lot because, well, on the one hand, like, yes, I do actually really enjoy research. And I think I would like to do the process, but I'd be lying to myself if that's the top reason. It's almost
Yeah.
like that's the secondary reason. And
Yeah.
if that's the secondary reason, is it worth giving 5 years of your life to and a significant amount of money in debt that you would get in to do so? If that's not your main reason for doing it, should you really be doing it? And who knows, maybe at some point I'll feel differently and maybe I'll do it. But it can be helpful to question, are we doing it for the journey or are we doing it for the destination?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think all of this brings me back to the point about if we're not getting our sense of self-worth from all of this stuff and then chasing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing to fill whatever the hole is. And the way that I think about people's worth now is like I visualize it. I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it just makes me happy whenever I think about it. Is I imagine each person has got like a gem, like a crystal in their chest. And every person's gem is like different. It's like a different color, like different pattern to it or something like that. But it just glows and like they don't have to do anything at all to be valuable. Oh, it's just, yeah, it just makes me really happy to think about it.
Well,
And
yeah,
there's
just that inherent value just for the fact that you exist.
just that just because you exist. And there's an exercise that I do that I think it's from a book called Homecoming. And it's a really powerful exercise. But basically, I'll talk the person through going back to where they were born and visualizing themselves as a baby and just seeing the worth of that baby, which is them. And it just helps most people to connect with that actually they were born with this worth. They didn't have to earn it. And I'm oversimplifying a little bit. I feel like there are some complications. There are questions about the importance of contributing to society, not just being selfish and arrogant and all the rest of it. But yeah, I think there's something really important about recognizing that we do all have that inherent worth and we don't have to earn it. And yeah, I guess that just loops back around to what did we get or not get from the people around us when we were younger. Yeah.
Well, you couldn't ever imagine someone holding a baby in their arms and saying, well, they're not good enough,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you hold a baby and you just see their inherent worth, even though they literally can't do anything.
Right. Yeah.
That you see their inherent worth and value, and you want to nurture and take care of that. And at no point in our lifetimes does that worth change or diminish. People and life just make us feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the things that we've spoken about can be really helpful in starting to address this within ourselves. I think we've both mentioned some of the questions that you might be able to ask yourself, understanding where this comes from for you, and starting to work towards, or even just getting a little bit of an idea about what you might need to do to step out of this pattern where it's not perfection that we're chasing anymore, but just something that's just, this is good enough. I'm a big believer in, and I know you are as well, but where self-compassion can feature so much in this. And I also really believe that challenging perfectionism and challenging our need to achieve doesn't have to also equal a lowering of our standards. There's a difference between having some high standards and maybe the work that we want to produce versus fear-driven perfectionism. You can still want to produce some top quality work and you don't have to let go of that. But it is just checking in with, is that really what you're aiming for? Actually, is it that you're aiming for that unattainable sense of perfection?
Yeah. Yeah. Really well put. Really well put.
Yeah.
Mm.
If you're someone who's constantly striving, constantly pushing, constantly thinking about what's next,
And rarely letting yourself feel like what you've done is enough.
you're not failing at life, you've just learnt to measure your worth through what you do.
And that's something that can be unlearned slowly, gently, over time.
Next time, we're diving into Too Damaged to Deserve Nice Things. We'll be talking about self-sabotage, not being able to relax when things are going well, and what's underneath the urge to blow it all up just before it gets really good.
But for now, we'll leave you with this. Notice this week how quickly you move on from your wins.
And see if you can just stay with what you've achieved for a moment longer.
That's all from us today. If this episode made you feel a bit less alone, the best way to help us reach more people is to subscribe, rate the podcast, and follow Too Much Apparently on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Those simple clicks help other sensitive humans find us when they need it most. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon.